what, in a nutshell, what are you trying to do? Like, what is your, if you had to boil it down, I'm a golden retriever, I'm a fifth grader, what are you trying to put out there?
With my business, the cool thing about it is the brand is me, is my lifestyle, is my journey through life, is the destination that I am, just the journey. And the cool thing about that is what I'm trying to do in a nutshell is offer people the hope, the tools, and the evidence that living a life they want to live is possible and that life doesn't have to suck and be miserable. In a nutshell, that's what I do. And offer people the hope that living, I mean, I just got off a call with somebody and it's the same thing. People just want to feel secure, safe, and free. And like we were talking about earlier, we live in an epidemic of a world that nobody even knows that that's possible anymore. And so offering the hope, the tools, and the evidence that it is possible. And if I offer that to one person, they're going to offer it to 10 people. Those 10 people are going to offer it. Like, it's just a ripple effect. And I do that through my business and through just living my life.
Very nice. What would you say is probably from your experience, maybe if you wanted to boil it down to like one to three things, what holds people back from that outside of fear, right? Or outside of not understanding that they can take control of their life? Because if someone doesn't understand that they even can, like it's a possibility, then it's not even in the real house, right? That possibility doesn't even exist. But once someone realizes, okay, I want to try, but I feel trapped or lonely or what would you boil it down that prevents people from actually, doing that?
It's hard for me to answer that question outside of fear because the way that I want to answer that question is people are scared of succeeding, people are scared of what other people think, and people are scared of failing. And I've lived those things, and I think those things kept me stuck. And that fear manifests in a lot of different things that are easier to see. So I don't think I can answer that question without saying fear plays a really big role.
Not cheating. It's not cheating at all. That's, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you took quite a massive transformation in your own life. So, I mean, you're speaking from experience, not just theory, right? So, tell me about that transformation. What sparked let's start there actually. What sparked that transformation for you?
It was a, like, ever since I can remember, my childhood memories are far out the window, but the few that I do have, I was unsettled, uncomfortable in my body, in life, but there was always that little bit of hope inside of me. And that hope would lead me to find the relief in something. That something didn't work. And I feel like through life, I was searching for all of these external things driven by that genuine hope that I thought was going to get me to feel secure in my skin, to feel happy, to live the life that I wanted to live. And the biggest shift in making the actual transition, not into the maladaptive things that I thought were gonna get me there, but to the things that actually got me here, was somebody believing in me and having it reflected back to me that not only were the things that I was doing were not working, but that more is possible. And deciding one day, I've tried everything, so let me just start believing in myself and create that as the foundation. Find people that can hop on that boat with me and see where it goes.
It definitely did. Most people, that I ask, and I like to ask that question, and I usually follow it up with, you know, tell me who you were in middle school, high school. And most of the people that I ask that question to usually do have one or two events, but it sounds like, to quote Tony Robbins, that there was a little giant within that you always knew was there, you just never really tapped into. So before I ask about, maybe high school, middle school, was there a moment? Like, so you had said that there wasn't a moment, but I want to drill in here a little bit because, like, so for example, you even have, a lot of your videos that talk about this transformation and show this transformation, right? And it's like there's a reality behind, oh, I need to actually start taking the steps here. What does that look like? I mean, for most people, they don't have to um, go be a bodybuilder and win, like most people, it's like walk around the block, do 10 push-ups a day, then do 20, then 40, right? So for you, like what was that like once you realized, oh, I don't know, it's not working. How do I get, you know, on the right track?
The biggest turning point was when I left my ex relationship. It was emotionally, mentally abusive, and this was the turning point that started the transformation but didn't get me there yet, but it sparked, I guess, the big giant in me, like you said. For real, for real. I was sitting in a staff meeting I used to work at Lululemon, and it was a big staff meeting. It was really, we did fun activities, and we were all given a piece of paper and a marker, and we were going to write down all the unique things that we brought to a team. Because, like people say, like, it's the diversity that makes us all stronger. So let's talk about everything that we uniquely bring to a team. 5 minutes, everybody write it down, then we're going to share it. Beautiful, amazing. I sat there, and this was when I was still in that relationship. I sat there, 5 minutes, could not write down a single thing. I had no idea who I was. I could not even pretend to think of something that was unique that I brought to a team. There was no light in me. Like I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't even make up something to write down. My paper was blank. And then, of course, they say, all right, turn to your neighbors and share everything that's on your paper. And I sprinted to the bathroom and started bawling. And I sat there and I was just a shell of an existence. And I don't know if it was in that moment or afterwards when I was able to kind of process it, but I was like, I want to be a human. I want to have an experience. I want to be alive again. And I started searching like podcasts, books, went down the whole self-help rabbit hole again, and started to plant these seeds that, oh, maybe I am worthy of being loved and having safety at home and in a relationship. So that led to me leaving, deciding one day, enough is enough. I'm leaving this relationship. I grabbed my essentials, my work outfit, and my phone charger and my dog, and I left. And still was a shell of a human being, but at least I was doing something to try to fill it with a human being. And the start of the transformation was when I realized that I was so stuck in a life is hard, life sucks, poor me. Why are all these things happening to me? It's because of this relationship that I'm a shell of a human being. It's because I was adopted that I'm going to have abandonment issues for the rest of my life. And I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you walked into that relationship and you stayed knowing that this is not to take away from abuse, but I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you did play a part in all this. You walked into a relationship knowing that it was unhealthy. I mean, you met this guy in rehab. Like, people told you to leave. Like, all of these things. Like, no, it wasn't my fault because I was so mentally and emotionally manipulated and just not on this planet. And so I was like, I need to strengthen my mind. I need to do things that are uncomfortable on my terms so that I can build some more resilience. Because evidence shows I can survive a lot of crap, but I'm done surviving the crap. I'm trying to live the good. And it was January 1st, I don't even know what year it was, 2023. And I decided to start taking a cold shower every single day because I did not want to do that. It sounded miserable, but because I didn't want to do it, I started doing it. Since then, I still take a cold shower every single day because I could then be in control of my uncomfortableness. Instead of saying, life is uncomfortable, life sucks, poor me, what did I do to deserve this? I am now in control of the pain, of the uncomfortableness. And yes, there's a lot of mental and physical benefits to cold showers and cold exposure, but I'm in control of that. And so I guess those two things were the pivotal turning points and the stepping stones that rocketed me to where I am and where I continue to go.
So you immediately jumped into something, I mean, revolving around fitness. I know you had mentioned that it wasn't about the health benefits. It was about the being uncomfortable and forcing yourself into that. But it was still kind of on the health range. I'm assuming that you kind of had a general idea that it was like not bad for you, right? Because I think, in Asia, for example, if you tell people that you take cold showers, I don't know what it is, but they still say like you're gonna get sick. That's so bad for you. And I'm like, do you understand these are the most stereotypical responses? Like you're gonna get a cold, like it's like, come on, mom, like it's good, like I promise, right? They still say that, right? And I don't, right, it is. And I always thought that was interesting. But you kind of lean towards the health. Did you feel like you had a natural proclivity to that, or going through addiction, you just wanted to do the opposite, whereas maybe you were treating your temple improperly and then you wanted to go the opposite. Part of the reason why I wanted to ask this question is I just had on and spoke with a sobriety advocate, and he felt very, very average. It's fit over 40 dad. He started it. Again, he's like 49 years old. The guy was very thin, over 6 foot, alcoholic in his own words. And if you see him now, he's jacked. He's not a little jacked. He's like doing push-ups on the Iron Cross rings with a rucksack on, jacked, right, at 49, going from, in his own words, a functional alcoholic to that. So he kind of, he said he didn't purposely trade anything, but it kind of seems like the personalities. I mean, I didn't even know that this is some of your story here. It sounds relatively similar, where you were in one extreme and went to the other. Am I hearing that correctly?
I would say yes, in many different aspects.
So tell me about the extremes. Like you sound like an extreme person, and I mean that in a compliment.
I would 1000% say the all or nothing, black or white, one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum. For the majority of my life, I lived in the extremes because that's what's exciting, right? Like, we don't want to admit it, but there's a thrill and a satisfaction of being in those depressive cycles where we're like really low, really low. And there's a thrill in being in the high chaos craziness of the world. And that's one extreme that I lived in. I also lived in the extremes of, I don't know what extremes you're asking for, but I'd like to give you all of them. Of it's I'm thinking about the extremes in my life and how I just mentioned like the extremes are satisfying, and I think the fit over 40 that you just shared, where it was like the extreme of functioning alcoholic to now like really fit, you know, way different body type, that everybody is looking for an outlet of some sort. I think like we all have things in our brain and addictions, and we are pleasure seeking humans. And yes, some of us use drugs and alcohol, some of us use sugar, some of us use social media, there's porn, there's all of these things that people use, there's gossiping, there's chocolate, there's wine, or sex, all of the things that people can use. And so I do seek now the physical extremes of it because now it's satisfying in a way that serves me. And so we could talk all day about all of the extreme things that I've done to find that satisfaction, whether it was an eating disorder or overworking out or, control over my food or drugs or alcohol or social media. Like we could candy, the list goes on and on. And so now seeking that extreme in something that is in line with where I want to go was the really big game changer. So I don't think that answers your question, but that's what I focus on now, if that
A
makes
little,
sense.
a little bit. And one of the reasons why I asked is something you talk about is super normal stimuli, right? Which are what? Socially accepted extremes?
Socially handed to us on a golden platter.
Yes, right? Or encouraged highly. And I really wanted to talk about this because I love the way you framed it. Because I think people talk about this in a way that either feels foreign to them, even though it's so close to them, right? Or they can't grasp it. And it's like, this is so tangible. And the way you framed it, I'm 100% going to be saying this from now on. Super normal stimuli, right? Tell me about that.
So, yeah, supernormal stimuli are things that cause us to feel really, really good and take us out of the present moment. Things like sugar that also give us that dopamine hit, things like sex that give us a physical release, things like even action movies that are super enticing. And it, in our society, we are built upon these super normal stimuli and they become our normal. So things that are naturally occurring, like a hug from your mom, or petting the dog, or smelling fresh laundry, things that also help like feel good, don't ever reach the feel goodness of these super normal stimuli that are not naturally occurring. So we're never going to reach the same stimulus from naturally occurring things, which lead people to thinking that a normal, natural life is not good enough. So we're always seeking these big super normal things. And I don't know if we were recording when we were talking about this, but we talked a lot about how people live their day to day in the automation. They answer questions in the automation of, how are you? Good. How's work? Good. I go to a job, I do this because that's what I was told to do. And that's so mundane that these supernormal stimuli feel so good. That becomes our expectation for life. And none of those things are naturally occurring, so it automatically takes us out of our bodies, and now we're living for things external, which why we're in that crisis full circle of people not feeling secure or confident or in their bodies with the hope that they can live a life that they want to live.
And that's usually everything. And I know it sounds like an oxymoron, but it's usually everything. This is the social media, right? So something that I like to do that I've done a lot and I do myself is I've worked a lot on the back end of the social platforms before it was kind of a cool thing. And I saw a lot of changes and things and issues and problems. So for almost 10 years, I didn't have the apps on my phone. Not at all. It's not because I'm afraid of being tracked, which they're doing, and I'm also not cool with, but that's a different conversation. It's purely because of the dopamine and the reality of they're not just designing them to be pleasurable, they're designing them to be as addictive as humanly possible. They're not even designing them to be addictive. They're designing them to be as addictive as humanly possible. So if it's a scale of 1 to 10 and they can get it to a 9.2, they are trying to get a 9.3, then 9.4, then 9.5. and it takes the life away from everything. And it's very real and it's sad. For you, right, with super normal stimuli, and we see successful people. We see, you on stage, for example, right, and getting to where you're at. How did you get? Let me ask you a secret that's not a secret. How did you get there?
On stage,
Yeah, how did you get on stage? How did you build the life, the body that you wanted?
waking up every day and making decisions that took me there and acting like that person before I was that person.
Oh, I'm gonna bookmark that because we're gonna come there. Because I want to come back to that. But the mundane, right? The day to day, the not sexy, the not boring, or excuse me, the boring, right? The shower every morning. By the way, anybody who's listening, do you notice she didn't say I started running a mile every day? She didn't say I started with 20 push-ups a day. She didn't say I got on this new awesome keto, vegan, gluten-free, lactose-free cheese diet. She said I'm gonna take it's right there. We all have a shower. Or if you're on a tropical island like me in Okinawa, you got the ocean or whatever. Like it's right there. It's simple. It's a milestone habit. It's something you can brick your way up to building the house that you want, which is also a metaphor and an exercise that I love and I'm probably going to steal and remind myself as well. Can you walk me and everyone else through this exercise of the house? Because I love this.
I'll take everyone through the whole thing. Like, yeah, so you're a house. In this moment, you're a house, and every single decision, thought, energy you put out there, reaction, emotion, feeling lays a brick into that house. A lot of people are living in dungy shacks that they, like we were saying, were not building for themselves. It's the day to day. They're not even aware of all these decisions that they make. And the not sexy things that build a glorious house are living purposefully from the inside out. We all want to live in that amazing mansion on the beach. We're not going to lie about that. Or the huge cabin by the lake in the ocean, in the mountains. And you do not get there by really in this world doing what everyone else does and seeking those external things. You have to change the internal world first. And that looks like taking control of everything that you can control, giving up everything that you have no control over. That's waking up in the morning and telling yourself that you're a great person and that you love yourself. And even if you don't believe it until you believe it. And then it's doing something hard, like getting out and going outside, going on a walk, getting sunshine, hopping in that cold shower. To get on the bodybuilding stage, that house took a lot of early morning cardio and supplements and cooking meals and eating those meals every single day. And I could talk about it for hours, but like you said, it's the non-sexy. Every single decision, every single thought you have to become aware of to build an intentional house. And before a house is built, I don't know much about contracting, but I do know that they create a blueprint. They know exactly what it's going to look like. They do all the math. They hire all the teams. They lay the piping. They build the foundation. They start acting like the mansion before they see the mansion and put everything in its place, calculated, and then it becomes the mansion. They don't just start throwing stuff at it. They don't just hire the coach with like you said, the keto diet with the gluten-free cheese and the fancy thing and think that that's going to take them to the mansion. No, it's the small little daily things that you can control that actually create that mansion.
So if somebody is sitting here and they want to do it, what do you recommend that they start with? Step one, turn off this video, audio. What am I doing?
You're sitting still for 3 minutes with your eyes closed with no distractions, figuring out how to feel your breath, and truly, genuinely asking yourself, what do you want that house to look like? What do you want your life to look like? And before the judgment comes up, before the rationalization of, oh, I can't do that, I can't afford that, what will people think? Like, what do you actually want? Not what did your mom tell you you should do, what society tells you you should do, what your wife wants you to do. What do you genuinely want? Because we all put out energy every day. But if that energy is not directed in a direction that you even know what it's going to, then how are you even going to get a house?
Being present, being silent. That's great. That's big, right? One thing I always talk about is so you're talking about extremes and whatnot. So I'm not opposed to extremes myself. I've lived many of them. You know, you don't move to Japan. I mean, it's literally as far away as you can go from basically where I am now, so it's kind of an extreme on its own, right? But I always, I do any little barrier that I can put in my own way in a constructive manner is what I do. So what do I mean? When I was talking about earlier on the back end of the social media platforms, at the time it was, and I can't do that now, but it was, I didn't even have the apps on my phone. If I literally wanted to use them, I would re-download the app, re-log in, then use them, then delete it. And that extra 3 to 5 minutes was enough to stop me from, for actually like 3 or 4 years. Like I didn't even, not even once, utilize, right? And I felt peace and calm, right? But then when I re-downloaded them, I mean, every modern day phone has app limits that you can set yourself, time limits, right? So now I set a 20-minute timer. Now I can bypass that. I'm a grown man. Like I know how to go around it, but the simple barrier of reminding me, you hit the 20 minutes. You can either keep going and ignore it for the whole day. You can add 1 more minute or you can add 15 more minutes. And that simple little thing, and it's still an option, it's only one button, has stopped me countless times to just go, you know what? I got to finish what I'm doing. 1 more minute. That's it. Right. And then it's done for the day. And it won't even unlock it unless I deliberately go and unlock it. It's that one little barrier I can put in my way. I think James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, right? Like for him, it was reading books. So he just started putting books everywhere, and there's a book on this shelf here and I started doing that. And at first my wife was like, you never read these books. Like I actually really like reading, but I just had a peak and season of life where I was so busy and I didn't. My wife would bother me about it. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I just started picking them up and just surrounding myself with it. Right. So in terms of where did you hear when you say, being the person before you're there, where did you hear that for the first time? Or generally speaking, maybe not the first quote, but
I feel like a Joe Dispenza meditation. Like talk about another full circle moment or some like when I realize like, oh, if I can go to this place in my head and I start acting like it, there's no other option, then it will happen.
we talked about it, of course, earlier. But yes, I just went to the 7-day retreat here in Nashville. So the full circle she was talking about. I'm not gonna plug all of it. You can find it. It's great. It's worth it. Just take the leap. If you've ever looked at the page and you didn't push the purchase, but just do it and worry about the rest later. Just trust me, I can't put into words. Um, but he does talk about that quite often, both on stage, off stage, on recordings, through content, and one on one when you just casually meet the cat. He lives what he says. He does it. It's real. And he's so humble, and it's hard to explain. And I think that humility I'm sensing in you as well. Um, One thing I wanted to do is maybe break through that a little bit so you can brag on yourself ever so slightly if you will indulge me in this a little bit. Okay. So you you did, and again, a little mini full circle, you did have quite a significant transformation. And it started one day at a time, and then it evolved into something I think probably much bigger than you even expected it to at the time. When was there a time where you were like, I think I want to be on stage, or I think I want to like compete, you know? What was that like, and when did that come about?
The dream to be a bodybuilder and step on stage and to go through a prep was placed in my heart many, many years ago. Something that I really admired. Maybe it was when because I started in CrossFit. CrossFit is incredible. And then probably through social media, I found out about bodybuilding and I was like, damn, those people have so much dedication and discipline. And this is a side, but I think it plays into this story as I used to operate from a place of I have to prove my worth, and how I prove that worth is I am so more disciplined than anybody else and I'm the hardest worker in the room and then I'll be worthy and loved. That's a whole nother thing. But I think that's what also made it attractive to me, because if I could step on stage, get to 8% body fat, look that way, build the muscle, do the meals, do the cardio, because you don't get there by accident. I mean, bodybuilding is an extreme sport because it is all those non-sexy things we were talking about earlier. You have to do every single day. Cheat once, that could like literally change your placing in the show. And I saw that and I was like, wow, I want to do that so bad. And then the little birdie popped up like, oh, you're not worthy. You will never have that much discipline. And so the seed got planted the second I learned about it. And it wasn't until actually a year ago, not even a year ago, probably 11 months ago, when I went to my first bodybuilding competition and I saw the girls on stage. I was there supporting a friend, had never been. And I was like, you know what? F it. Even if I don't think I can do it, I'm just going to hire a coach tomorrow and give it my all and see what happens. And so last October is when I hired my first bodybuilding coach. Really had no idea what I was getting myself into. I did not know all of the non-sexy things that it also took. And I told myself, you've survived everything that you don't want to go through, so you might survive something you do want to go through, so just give it your best shot and let's see what happens. And it's been a rad ride, to say the least.
So I'm working my way up to marathon, ultra marathon time frame here, and that has its own, in its own way, is, but there's a different level of not even once, right? Like not even one cheat day, not even one this or that, you know, and it really it's so meticulous to a degree. It's it's wild. So when you were growing up and going through all of the hardships that you were going through, did you ever picture yourself there? So take me back, high school, middle school, high school. Who are you? Now I am fascinated, and I've re-asked this question for a reason, because I am obsessed with decisions. And I've talked about this at so many times. I'm sorry, everybody, but it's just like I am obsessed with decisions. Like there's nothing necessarily tangible. Yes, there's energy. Yes, there's frequencies. Great. There's not really anything tangible there. But there are so many times that we have set decisions and it went nowhere. And then there are other times that we have set decisions and for whatever reason, they have stuck. I do not believe the answer is purely discipline. I do not believe it is purely habits. There is something innately valuable about a genuine decision that has its own power that I'm trying to find and ask everyone I can think of about this concept, right? Even in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill talks about this quite extensively, right? I think that's even one of the 13 principles. Actually, it is the 13. It's a decision to do it, a true decision. So take me back to growing up for you.
Growing up on the outside was very typical middle class, two parent, three kid household. Kids went to school, had their extracurriculars. Nothing was quote unquote wrong from the outside. I mean, yes, looking back, we had our, dysfunctional family patterns. We didn't talk about feelings, the things, that were also the norm in the days. But it was more like the internal world that I was living in and that was so dysfunctional. And when you ask what it was like growing up, I mean, obviously, all I have is my perspective. And my earliest memory from a kid that I really remember is I was 10 years old, and stop me if this goes into too much detail, but I like stole my parents' iPad and Googled like how to kill yourself with ibuprofen. I didn't know anything about suicide. I didn't know anything about any of that. All I knew was that is existing as Caroline on this planet was so painful and hard that I had no idea how to do it. And it I send myself so much love. I send little Caroline so much love because there was never a safe landing pad that I could feel secure growing up. And I grew up a ballerina. That came with its own layers of I was doing a food journal at 7 years old, and it got graded, and I was told how good or bad I was based upon how I ate. And I was taught to read a food label, and if it was above 2% fat, I couldn't eat it. And I could only have happy foods on Sundays. And I went through puberty in a leotard and tights, along with all these other beautiful, slim girls in a leotard and tights. Like, there was just so many layers to external comparison, external things, and my internal world was so painful and raw. And I didn't have the tools to explain that to anybody, or even knew that I could explain that to anybody. So I always felt unheard. I was scared. I was unsafe. My body felt unsafe. I was adopted. And so there was a whole other layer of my family doesn't feel like mine all the time. I don't think I belong here. I'm unwanted. I'm unlovable. And from that earliest memory onward, I mean, based upon, I'm sure the videos you've seen on social media, tried a whole list of things to find the safe, secure landing pad that I was looking for, that I thought was, I had to find that somewhere external. Didn't know until, I mean, now that it was an internal shift that was needed. Um, and looking back from middle school to high school, if you ask who I was before we hopped on, we were talking about authenticity and how it's a level deeper than not just lying, but being raw and true. I was not raw and true. And I was lying, and I was doing all of these things to try to fit into maybe this friend group will accept me, and then maybe this friend group will accept me, and then maybe this alcohol makes me feel really good, and then maybe sneaking out I'll be the cool kid, and then I'll finally feel good enough, or I'll date this person, then I'll finally feel good enough, or I'll go to this school and feel good enough, or I'll lose this much weight and be this small and be good enough, or I'll have this job and go to this school. And middle school and high school, in a nutshell, was me searching through all of those things to find a safe place.
Growing up for me, I mean, I did sports, but I never had a friend group. Um, I was every single year was with a different group. I wouldn't say I had enemies, and I wasn't the weird kid, because every class has a weird kid who's extra weird, who has their own shit going on, and I get that. Um, but I wasn't that guy. But I didn't really have anybody, if that makes any sense. It wasn't, I just saw every group that I went to every year was different, as I mentioned, but I noticed that theirs were never different. They had that crew, they had the people, if that, and even on the football team or anything that I had, any of the sports that I had done, I was just never in. I don't know another way to say that.
I relate to that a lot. I completely understand that. Yeah.
Right. And hey, I ended up in Japan, in Okinawa, Japan. I'm the only guy in Okinawa that's from America that's not ex-military.
Wow.
So even then, it's like, it's part of me, right? It's part of what makes me me. and whatnot, what would you tell yourself back then? So, okay, again, I'm asking this because I noticed you said something that I don't really care what people think. I believe it's real. I don't know how to explain it. I have felt it. I don't know how to put words on it, as it, apparently nobody can. You said I send a lot of love to my younger self. And I don't think that is an expression. I mean, I think maybe you used it as an expression, but I think that's a real thing, um, that can be done and that helps and that is actually an effective thing. Am I a scientist? No, but it is what it is. So, do you actually like consciously, deliberately send love to your younger self in that regard? And if you do, what do you send? And if you don't, like, what would you tell that younger self that you now know?
Without going too far off track, the way that I approach it is all we have is this present moment. And so, in this present moment, not only are we existing as this person, this being, we're also existing as everything we've been, everything we want to be, in whatever direction that is. And the way that when I use the words, I send that younger version of me love, in this moment, the parts of me that are searching for love and validation and attention, I send them love by meeting those needs. And so, yes, in the past, that could have looked like closing my eyes, envisioning that person, like a baby Caroline, giving her love and hugs. And I feel like that got me to a certain level where I could acknowledge that person needed love, they didn't get what they needed. And practically, how I do that now is I offer myself grace when the parts of me that have a need that isn't getting met speak up in ways that don't align with who I want to be, or maybe more maladaptively. Thank you so much for reminding me that you have needs that need to be met. You didn't know how to meet them. This is how a way that you used to meet them. I still love you. And so practically now it looks like sending all the pieces of me love, because I still carry all of that with me. I just now have an understanding of it where I can concentrate the flow of that output into something that serves me.
Yeah, yeah. What would you tell your younger self?
There's nothing wrong with you. And even if there was, you're still loved for all of the pieces. And somebody else doesn't have to understand you for you to be understood and seen and valid.
So, talk to me here about something that you shared very recently, actually. Was from now on, trying to think of how to preface this. Okay, so there's no secret that there is something. I don't think anyone can put their finger on it, and I think everybody has different ideas, but there is something wrong with modern day healthcare, right? And there's something going on deeper than simply a health crisis, because we've had health crises in the past, right? World War II came around. We needed the lean muscle meat for the soldiers. We're trying to get people to eat organ meats, which is also good for you anyway. But still, like, there was a health crisis, there was an initiative. They had another health crisis with teeth. It's kind of the only reason why America cares and the rest of the world doesn't care about teeth the same way. It's because we had a health crisis about teeth and we took an initiative. But I think now people realize that there is something more going on. This one is deeper. This is more humanity based, right? So for you, you're very holistic with what you do, right? You have a tenet, I think it was what? Sunshine, movement. So food, movement, and sunshine is your medicine now. Tell me about that.
I agree that we live in a world with, especially in America, with a quite messed up healthcare system. And all of the disease and the ailments and the issues Kobe's coming to say hello because he agrees, huh? You eat food and get into sunshine and you're just fine. That's all we need. um, Now I'm all distracted with the dogs. um, where it was, if you have an issue, here's a pill, here's a treatment, here's a slew of treatments to cover up that issue so you're free from disease. Where it became an approach of let's keep people alive. And we do not live in a society where we want people to thrive. And using whole food, I mean, cavemen existed and survived just fine without a healthcare system, right? Like we have mammalian brains that are wired for survival way before a hospital was even built. And yes, there were practical reasons for the healthcare system to be built, like you were just saying, and lots of positive benefits to that. And it kept developing to a place where we lost trust in our innate ability to heal and thrive. And this relates to a lot of things we were talking about earlier, where we were seeking it outside of ourselves instead of within us. So going back to the roots of it all, which is Mother Nature, whole foods, sunshine that comes up every single day that is free, using our legs to walk around to support our digestion, our health, our hormones, our everything, to feel our best, way more beneficial than going somewhere where they find a problem in you and then they help you overcome that problem to survive.
When you work with people and you work with the clients, right, where do you find most of them are? And then what do you usually do as the first steps for them to improve? I'm sure all of them are different and have different needs and whatnot. I could only imagine, but just kind of in general.
Yeah, 1000% correct. Everyone comes from a different place needing different things. Overall, the biggest thing people are searching for, whether they know it or not, is what I talked about in my own transformation and journey, is they want to feel good. We want to wake up every day and feel good and live a life that we actually enjoy instead of living for somebody else in the now I can't say the word, mundane, automatic things. And the reason that they do not feel safe and secure in their bodies and are making choices and following through with those choices in a way that feels aligned to them is because their body is sick, because they are not eating whole foods and they are eating chemicals and all of those things, which is a whole nother story. They are not moving in their bodies either in a healthy way or in a way that feels good to them. Maybe they're using exercise as an extreme to cope with some internal dysfunction, or they're not moving at all because we live in America where most of the population works a desk job and, has their butt in a chair. Or they are addicted to social media and TV, so they don't sleep enough at night. So then their hormones are dysregulated. I call it survival mode. 99% of the clients that come to me are living in survival mode, where they're not eating enough whole foods or they're not eating enough in general to fuel their body. And they're not resting enough, they're not moving enough, they're not getting any sunshine. So they are actively in fight or flight, high cortisol, high adrenaline. Their body's starting to give up because it can't keep those high levels. And that's where we see the fatigue, the mental fog, the loss of cognitive functioning, body starts to fail, and then we don't even want a different life. We just know that we don't like the one that we're living.
So they become addicted to a life they don't even love or like, for that matter.
And then we're raised in a society that says, go to the doctor. The doctor is going to say, oh, you have this problem with your kidneys, or oh, you Have high blood pressure. Here is a medication that will lower that blood pressure on this one test. Look, we solved it. But now, oh, your kidneys are failing because of all this medication that we put you on. So now it's just, and then it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so crazy and it's so weird to watch. One thing that's fascinating about living in Japan is so there's a Chinese medicine called Kampo, but Japan and Okinawa, which is where I live, it's kind of like the Hawaii of Japan, so it's like very far away from the mainland. They also have their own Kampo, Kampo. And when I go to the Western medicine doctor in like the pharmaceutical doctor, classic doctor, right, in Japan, and they give me a prescription, they actually give a Kampo and a Western pharmaceutical prescription, and then they give you the option to choose both. And compo is very herbs based, um, and it's not. I wouldn't say it's like raw, vegan or just like food is medicine. It's still like medicine, but it's not synthetic pharmaceutical. It's just totally different. But I didn't even know that was like a thing until I had gotten there. First of all, I'd never heard of compo. Second of all, I didn't realize that this is like the regular doctor, the regular hospital, right, is providing this. And I happen to always take the compo and it works totally fine, but it's just made entirely different. And it's based on an entirely different model of the human body. Very holistic, kind of along the lines of what you do. The body as a system made up of multiple individual systems that work together, which is what we call human beings, right? I didn't know that. I thought that was fascinating. And I thought it was fascinating that it existed, but I thought it was even more fascinating that it was so commonly prescribed by even Western medicine doctors. And that's all I take now. If I get like a headache or whatever, if it's not that crazy. If it's like a really bad headache, then I'll take a compo thing. Again, you're talking about like herbs. And if it's not even that bad and I'll just ignore, I'll drink a ton of water, right? So for you, what do you find as some of the most common challenges that your people have with diet and food in general? Because that's another topic that I think people can overcomplicate and get crazy. And by the way, I'm a crazy person in this subject. Like I'm a crazy person. Like I'm the only guy you've ever met that I genuinely drink lukewarm coffee. Right? I make hot coffee and I put 3 ice cubes in it to have lukewarm coffee. It's not iced coffee, it's lukewarm coffee. It's not the same. So like I'm a weirdo in this sense, and then I filter my water and all that. But
Yeah.
what are the but not everyone has to do that. That's just kind of my
Yeah.
thing because I burn my tongue if it's whatever. Anyway, help me.
You're right. It's not complicated. We love to complicate it because talking about supernormal stimuli, the very complicated specific diet where you have to get rid of all of these things or this one thing's going to save you, like that's really enticing because it's like that big big promise. What it really takes from a diet perspective is eat whole foods, things that are naturally occurring by Mother Earth that grow from the ground, lean protein sources, preferably wild caught or grass fed. Don't eat too much and eat the rainbow. Balance your protein, carbs, and fats. But guess what? We also have supernormal stimuli that live in the food industry. Everything on the aisles of the grocery store, I would say 87% of the things in the aisles that come in a package that you have to open or have a food label have sugar in them. And sugar's a whole nother rabbit hole we can go down. Supernormal stimuli give us that dopamine rush. So then guess what? When we're eating the cereal or even the oatmeal from a package or the yummy teriyaki chicken bowl that we popped in the microwave from the freezer aisle, even that has sugar in it. So when we eat a salad with chicken and avocados, what the heck? It's never going to taste as good. And it's never going to take us to that place. And so that's why people get so stuck in the cycles. And we can go on the neurotransmitter level too of the dopamine rush. But if we're just talking about the stimuli again, the whole foods that are actually very healing and give us everything we need are never going to be as exciting as the gosh dang big packaged chips ahoy or whatever it is that people like to eat. But it's nobody wants to do the boring stuff.
What do you find that when people dive into the whole foods, that they're, I don't know if it's, again, I'm not a nutritionist or a scientist necessarily, but like that is, if it's dopamine levels that decrease when they stop eating so much sugar and super normal stimuli. Do you find it that like it's boring at first and then later it's like I don't want to eat anything but this, or do you find it like it's never as good as the gummy bears? You know, that's, by the way, I say gummy bears because I stopped eating gummy because I had a genuine problem. And then people usually laugh and smile. And then, because they'll like, oh, you try it. And I'm like, no, listen, I'm not eating them because I like, it's not it's like, I love Habito, right? And the Star Mix was my thing. And I used to, whenever I would fly across the Pacific or the Atlantic at any point, which used to happen a lot, I would buy that was like my habit or my ritual, literally, that I would buy a really big thing of Harbito Star Mix and I would eat all of it, right? And then it got to a point where people would give me the gift of Harbito Star Mix, and it would be a gift for both me and my wife. And guess what? She would leave and it's gone. And then she's like, seriously? And I'm like, eat that, right? So I stopped eating them as a genuine thing. That's my one weakness. But do you find that when people's normacy levels kind of drop, that they're like all in on the addiction of health and whole foods?
Yeah, it's really cool to see the progression because with any addiction, the whether we could argue this all day, but the best way to get over something that you're addicted to, mentally or physically, is cold turkey. Like the whole weaning things off, like it just is painful and it's just dragging. So I love to get my clients on a whole food diet as fast as possible, cold turkey, all of the crap, and then go through like a really uncomfortable phase where your body is getting rid of all the toxins, where yes, it's boring and you don't want to eat the same thing every day because that gives you no stimulus in your body and it's the back to the non-sexy stuff. And as soon as they get over that hump of ridding their bodies of the toxins, the inflammation goes out, the sugar's out of their body, their brain is no longer addicted to the sugar and the dopamine. My clients send me messages all the time of, I was offered this, I was given this, I was put in an environment, all my girlfriends, we were getting ice cream. I just finished this big race and then we were going to celebrate. I didn't even want to eat that because I knew how it was going to make me feel. And that is the magic sauce that the entire health and fitness industry is missing. Instead of shaming of you shouldn't eat that because it's bad for you and it's going to make you fat or whatever the fear-based tactic and the shame-based tactic is, I approach it from I'm going to prove to you how good you're going to feel on whole foods that you're not even going to want to feel that way anymore. Because I mean, yeah, we're going to eat the ice cream every once in a while. They text me the next morning, my face is really swollen and I don't feel good. Versus, I hate myself because I ate ice cream. And then we create that evidence of how we feel. So then it is crazy to see they don't even desire it anymore because they don't want to feel that way. And that's the most impactful piece I think that I play in the coaching industry, is coming from that empowerment place where my clients now make decisions based upon how they want to feel versus hyper fixating on that end result.
Hmm. I think that's so key, is falling in love with the process, right? I think that's the common trend. Okay, so I almost totally brushed over it, but I can't. JD Emmons from Fit Over 40 Dad said the exact same thing. But everyone he works with, he's like, look, I'm not an AA specialist. Go find it. If you gotta have help, you gotta have, like, I get it. But he's like, everyone that I've worked with, including myself, for whatever reason, going back to that conversation of being assessed with a decision, right, is the cold turkey. Is you just make a decision. Dive. You gotta really want it though, because I'm still trying. There's a secret part of me that wants to be able to find out what that tangible thing that I was trying to describe as a decision being a real decision versus not a real decision, and then wanting to tap into that at will, but with the momentum of whatever that tangible thing is, rather than simply willpower, if that makes any sense. But he said this, JD said the exact same thing. He's like, everyone I talk to, when we get them to true, you can tell, you can feel it, they make a true decision, and it's cold turkey, things go well. But when they try to play the game of I'm only gonna drink on the Friday or the Thursday, and Okinawa is obviously it's a blue zone. Please do not get me to go down that road. Blue zones are not real, but the longevity of the blue zones are real. It would take way too long to explain this to you, and maybe in a future episode I'll do 2 hours about this. I know the scientists personally. I know them all. Just trust me. With that said, if you talk to the people who live around me in a very small village in the jungle of Okinawa, they're working their farms at 80 and 90. But when you talk to them about food and you talk to them about diet, none of them have cheat days. They still drink. They still have fun. They have like a rice sweets called mochi. Right now, it's not sweet by American standards by any means, but it's like a gooey mochi. You probably heard of mochi, right? Or daifuku and different things like this. They still enjoy and they have this, but they don't have a cheat day, right? And at all, because you start to crave the cheat day and you're going for the end result of I made it through the week so I can now reward myself as a cheat day. I made it through the end of a week rather than enjoying the process of actually liking the whole foods that you're eating and enjoying that can be flavorful, right? So I've seen you make you do some I gotta get recipes from you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But I saw one thing in particular. I saw I think it was zucchini noodles, you made, and you even said, right? And you had a twister, which I'm like, I'm getting one. Wait a minute, I don't have one. I'm the guy that you're talking to that doesn't have one. But I see you making, you're doing the spices, and you're like, we don't want flavorless. We don't want nonsense here. So we do want to eat good quality food. Is that your key? Like, where do you get your recipes from? Where did you find some of this stuff from? That you just found beautiful, healthy, delicious foods.
Oh man, I wish I had an answer for that, but they just appear in my noggin and I mix them together and I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And then I do it again and it works again and then I take a video of it and put it on the internet. I really love to find meals that are enjoyable and then make them healthy to show people that, cuz let's not beat about the bush. We can use food as pleasure when we want to. I mean, because food is good and it is pleasurable, and we shouldn't take ourselves away from that. And we should, I mean, we can if we want to keep that in line with where we want to go. And it's, I am, as a bodybuilder, this probably won't surprise you. I could eat tilapia and rice for every meal and be fine. Not sexy is great for me. And a way to appeal to the people that are used to those very flavorful, like you were saying, really sugar, higher, super normal kind of foods. It's kind of like a medium ground of this can taste really good and be really healthy, so we can still have excitement with whole foods.
What's your thoughts on fitness in terms of, for food you had mentioned like cold turkey, get healthy, get over the hump. It is what it is. When it comes to the fitness and the routines and the health that are not the health, it's all health, but the fitness specifically. Um, how do you feel about that with some of your clients and people that you've worked with? Are you more of a let's ease their way into it, or are you like let's get you on a routine?
It definitely depends on the client and it depends on their relationship with exercise historically. A lot of the women that I work with, and I know this also from personal experience, have used exercise as a coping mechanism or a means to earn worthiness in a certain body. because we also live in a culture that says women should be small and quiet and in their place, and this is what they should look like. And social media tells us that this is the body that you'll have, and then you'll be happy like this person. So on that side, it depends. Overall, if I can have my clients going on a 15-minute walk in the morning, strength training 3 to 5 days a week, focusing on foundational movements, they are set up for success for the rest of their lives. Walking in the morning in the sunshine gets the benefits of the sunshine, gets the benefits of moving, which regulates hormones and blood sugar and digestion. Strength training, focusing on the foundational movements, which are a hinge, like a deadlift kind of thing, a squat pattern, a pushing pattern, a pulling pattern, some type of core strength. Because those are the movements that we need for the rest of our lives. We have so many people in wheelchairs that can't get out of bed, that can't go upstairs because we lose these foundational things. And it doesn't take long. And I have clients that do it with bands and one kettlebell in their living room 3 times a week. And now they can get out of bed in the morning. And now they can walk upstairs with their hands full. Now they can get the trash out of the trash can and pull it up without breaking their back. Now they can get off the toilet when they're 75 years old and stay out of a wheelchair. Because, yes, we can survive our entire life in a wheelchair and then go to a nursing home. But I want to empower the world to thrive in a life where they're 85 years old, still able to travel, still able to play with their grandkids, get off the floor if they fall, and focusing on the non-sexy foundational movements are what get you there.
One thing that I got specifically after finishing up Joe's event here those last couple days, is being just doing nothing. Like literally, no, I'm not even talking about meditating because, like, obviously he's a meditator, right? And I do that too. Don't time and place, but like just doing nothing when I would normally do something, read, because I do like books quite a bit, And I'm, spoiler alert, I'm gonna ask you about books, but like something, but then just doing nothing. And today we had a storm. So like when I'm not doing anything, when I'm not working, when I'm not mixing up my schedules,
Coming back to earth.
I know, right? Yeah, trying to come literally, literally, just being on the couch and just doing nothing. And then when time and place come, like, oh, I got to do X, Y, doing it, of course. But when I don't have to, not filling the space with anything. And I think that touches on the same exact human nature thing that you were talking about with women too, minus the social pressures, but really feeling like I've got to earn my way into love or earn my way into this body because this person gets X, Y, or Z. Doesn't mean we don't set standards for ourselves. It's actually quite the opposite. We set standards for ourselves, not for the world. The world sees the standards we set for ourselves. So anyway, um, 3 books that you love. I have to. I love books. So 3 books that you're like everyone's got to read.
The Power of Now, The Four Agreements, I read a few times, and it took me a few times to understand it. Helped me build that security within too. And another really influential book on my journey has been Untamed by Glennon Doyle and The Gifts of Imperfection by Brene Brown, because those sparked in me like, oh wait, I don't have to live in the matrix and automation that everyone else has to live in. I can have a dream. I can not be the stay-at-home mom of 5 kids and still be worthy of like I can live my dreams and then accept all my imperfections and that'll be okay. Those were really influential books for me as well.
I'm gonna dive into Untamed. and The Gift of Imperfection, both of which I have not, nobody has suggested and I haven't read. The Four Agreements I probably need to retouch. I cannot remember anything in it. This is why I always ask, by the way, because I get like these great books and I'm like, oh my gosh. Um, what did you get then from the Four Agreements? You said it took you a couple times to really kind of grasp it.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. My birth mom sent me the Four Agreements as a birthday gift when I maybe was a senior in high school. And I remember flipping through the pages and being like, I don't understand why would somebody want to be impeccable with their word? Like I like didn't even grasp it. I was like, what is this philosophy type crap book? I don't like clearly was not in a place to understand it. And then when I was in rehab, it was a required book that you had to read and I read it and I was like, be impeccable with your word, don't lie, don't cheat, don't do the things that we know we're not supposed to do. And then I read it again a few years ago and I like really understood the power of a big takeaway I take from that book is like um what's the word I'm looking for? Integrity. The waking up and going to sleep every day knowing you lived in integrity opens up so many doors. And it took me a long time to grasp why that even mattered. And I think I had to live out of integrity to learn what integrity even was and how important it was.
I'm going to do a little bit of a rapid fire here for you. Um, no need to overthink it or go crazy or anything. I don't think they're too crazy of questions, but favorite meal.
Right now is those zoodles we were talking about.
They look great. I want them. I need to get a twister and I need to have them
Oh,
myself.
so good. You put some onions and some mushrooms and you saute it. Then you zoodle or you spiral your zucchini with some homemade pesto with some grilled chicken. Mm-mm-mm.
Um, Boiling down to one sentence, what is the one thing you want to leave the world when you leave the world? That sounds morbid, but that's, yeah.
You can literally do anything you want to. I think that was a big realization for me that changed the game. If you want to move to California, you can do that. If you want to be a doctor, you can do that. If you want to feel good, you can do that. We forget that we can create any life we want to live. You can do anything you want. Doesn't sound very like mind altering, but it is mind altering. Like it's like
No, it is. You know what's funny? I always say this ruins the point of rapid fire, but hey, whatever. I always have this saying where like actually it's even in my bio now and it's like how would you live if you truly knew God lived within you? And if, for Christians, Second Corinthians says the mystery been that has been kept hidden from the ages and that is Christ in you, as in Christ inside of you, as in God lives within you, as in Jesus is inside of you. And it's like, you say that, but their eyes glaze over. And then I'm like, you're obviously hearing and activating a repetitive grouping of neurons because you're not grasping what I'm trying to say. God lives within you. Like, that's crazy. So, anyway, so when you say that, like, you can do anything, do not let that go by unchanged because it's very easy when we say these platitudes and these cliches to do that. And that's partly why I am harping so much for my own selfish needs of what the heck is it about a decision that makes it tangible, that makes it real, that makes it like, because you're not the first person that's like go cold turkey, go do it. And actually that's actually what I did. I shared with JD, I stopped drinking about 3 months ago. Never had a problem necessarily. I actually enjoyed wine. I did 75 hard, finished phase two of 75 hard, and I had a bottle of wine, and something in my head told me this is not the season for this right now. And I didn't finish the glass. I didn't say tomorrow. I didn't say next bottle. I poured the glass out, then poured the rest of the bottle out, and it sucked. But I haven't drank since, and it's been just a decision that came to me that was like, it's not the season. But there was something tangible about that, meaning I don't even have to drudge my way through it because the power of whatever that decision, the tangible is, has helped boost me through that process. Of course, there are times that I'll go out and I'll sit around with friends and I'll be like, this would be a great time. I would enjoy a margarita, whatever. But it's not like there's not like this like struggle, like if that makes any sense. And that's what I think the power of a decision, a true decision is. And I'm never gonna let that go. I need to figure out what that is.
I mean, for me, what I hear is like the difference between a decision and a choice. We make a lot of choices every day, and going back to our biological human need for survival and pleasure, like that's what we're wired to seek, is survival and pleasure, because it keeps us from pain and death. And we make choices to avoid pain all day long. We're making choices to avoid pain, whether it's instant gratification pain that doesn't last, or, which I mean, a lot of us do. And then for me, a decision is more impactful because the decision is driven, whether it's bringing the imaginable into imaginable, or the untangible, like you said, into a tangible moment. But a decision happens when you decide not only are you going to run away from pain, but that you want the better. And that's why it sticks. And again, I can't explain the difference in energy or what the tangibleness behind it, but a choice happens. We make 1,000 choices throughout the day to avoid pain. This decision that sticks is because we decide whether we're worthy, whether we want it, whether we're desiring living the better. And then we bring that into our reality.
There's no doubt that I want to do a round two not long from now here and touch more topics as well. Um, but guilty pleasure at the current moment, what is that for you?
People are going to laugh at this. At night, I have my nightly tea. It's like a yummy vanilla, almond, herbal, no caffeine, from Mother Nature. And froth some almond milk with my flavored collagen in it, so it has some frothy, yummy almond milk on top.
It's
It's
the
the
little
little
things.
things.
It's the little things. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Oh gosh. I thought you were gonna say those noodles, and I was gonna say other than that you can't cheat. But wow, the tea. Yeah, right. A good herbal tea. Oh my gosh.
With
Um,
frothed almond milk on top that tastes like salted caramel.
oh, that sounds fantastic. Shoot, I want that now. Oh my gosh. It's still early for you, but it's almost coming up on 8 where I'm at, so I'm like, hey now. So what do you have any final words for anybody, for everybody?
You can do anything, 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 and you are worthy of a life that you feel good about. You're worthy of a body that you feel good in. And it's all so doable once you stop chasing the razzle dazzle, big shiny lights, and come back to the non sexy foundational things.
Caroline, thanks for hopping on with me.